It's the end of the year, and while it's a great time to look back at all of the year's best movies, it's also time to look back at some of the ones that, well, weren't so good. Now, worst of the year lists are sometimes unpopular as they're considered really mean. But for my money, anything that came out in theaters that people were actually expected to spend money on is fair game. All the movies on this list were legitimately bad, although if anyone checking out this list really loves or even likes any of the movies on it, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Movies are subjective. I can like a movie, you can hate it, and vice versa, and you know what? We'd both be right. But without any further ado, here are the worst movies of 2025. Number 10 is Ella McKay. James L. Brooks' first movie since his disastrous How Do You Know back in 2010 turned out to be an even bigger misfire, which is a real shame, as it's likely the last movie we'll ever see from the formerly great writer-director behind Terms of Endearment, Broadcast News, and As Good As It Gets. It was meant to launch the charming Emma Mackey as a star, but she's saddled with a terrible role as perhaps the most unconvincing screen politician in movie history. Jamie Lee Curtis, Ayo Edebiri, Woody Harrelson, and especially Leo Woodall, who at one point has to convincingly play a 16-year-old, all come across pretty poorly in a movie that I'm shocked Disney and 20th Century Studios ever greenlit in the first place. I wouldn't have been surprised if they dumped this one to streaming, but instead they gave it an awards-season theatrical push, and boy was that a mistake. Number 9 is another one from Disney, Snow White. While I've seen worse movies this year, Snow White kind of sums up exactly what's wrong with a lot of modern Disney fare, in that there's just no reason for this to exist. The movie was sunk with audiences long before it ever hit theaters thanks to the misguided comments of star Rachel Zegler, who threw the original classic, without which modern Disney wouldn't exist, under the bus. Instead, the movie was given an empowering new spin, or so they say, but truth be told, this was done way better not too long ago with Snow White and the Huntsman, which is 10 times the movie this is. It also feels like a film that was reshot to death. The same fate also befell Disney's other big winter misfire, Captain America: Brave New World. They wanted to please the widest audience possible, but in the end, they just pleased no one. A lot of folks involved this one seemed to take a major career hit with not only Zegler, but also co-star Gal Gadot getting slammed. Her performance as the evil queen was so abysmal that clips from it have gone viral for all the wrong reasons. Number 8, a crushingly disappointing one, Wolfman. More than any other movie on this list, Wolfman should have been good. After all, it was directed by Leigh Whannell, who made the amazing Upgrade and the solid remake of The Invisible Man, which was a huge hit for Blumhouse. The biggest problem with Wolfman is that it's not a Wolfman movie. Nothing of the classic formula remains with it reimagined as a body horror movie that more or less rips off The Fly and adds nothing new to the genre. How do you even do body horror anyway in a post-substance world where that movie was kind of the last body horror movie we need to see for a while, as it did it better than pretty much any other movie has done since The Fly. So why is the Wolfman so bad? Well, in my opinion, of all the classic Universal monsters, the Wolfman always held the most promise as an anti-hero, and Whannell's movie just wastes the opportunity by delivering us a boring, thrillless wannabe horror movie. It's a huge waste of stars Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner, the latter of whom has the dubious distinction of appearing in both one of the best horror movies of the year, Weapons, and one of the very worst. Number 7 is Star Trek Section 31. Now, Paramount has done a pretty good job harming its Star Trek franchise this year by throwing way too much content out there, whether it was justified or not. The worst of the lot was Star Trek Section 31, the first Star Trek movie in 9 years, but one that was so bad Trekkies everywhere just wished it had never been made. It's a cringe effort that tries to spin off Michelle Yeoh's anti-hero from Star Trek Discovery into her own franchise, which mercifully died once this came out and fans all over slammed it. The trailer certainly didn't help matters, with someone calling Yeoh a bad bitch admiringly while a Beyoncé song played in the background. Yeah, that's Star Trek all right. Number 6 is Holland. One of the more disappointing film experiences I had this year was with a movie that I bet the majority of you have never heard of, Prime Video's Holland starring Nicole Kidman, which was buried on streaming after its disastrous South by Southwest premiere, which I attended. Kidman plays a housewife who becomes suspicious that her husband, played by Matthew McFadden, is cheating on her, only to fall into a ludicrously dark plot that, rather than entertain anyone, seemed to come out of nowhere. It was a pretty rough follow-up for director Mimi Cave to her rather excellent horror comedy Fresh. She aims for a Coen brothers tone filtered through a feminist lens, and, well, it doesn't quite land. Hopefully she does rebound with her next movie, as Fresh proves she has a lot of talent, and I really doubt that all the blame for this one can be laid at her feet. Number 5 is Death of a Unicorn. This was another huge misfire that had caught at South by Southwest and part of a rough series of movies put out by A24 during the first half of the year that had many people wondering whether they'd lost their mojo. Luckily, they redeemed themselves with Bring Her Back, Marty Supreme, and a few others. Death of a Unicorn, just like another one that fell flat for them, Opus, had a really cool cast, including Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega, and a fun premise, but it's an utterly idiotic attempt at satire aiming to skewer families like the Sacklers in the most inane, toothless way possible. This was painful to watch. It actually reminded me a lot of an HBO movie that came out this year called Mountainhead, which also tried to skewer the ultra-wealthy, in this case tech billionaires. This would have ended up on my worst movie of the year list, but it just went straight to HBO Max, so could you even really consider it a movie? It was more of a made-for-TV movie, but boy, that one was really bad too. Number 4 is The Electric State. The Russo brothers had an embarrassing disaster with this Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown-led epic that cost a reported $320 million and was seemingly skipped by most Netflix viewers, resulting in one of the streamer's biggest flops ever. It took a great book by Simon Stellenhag and reimagined it into the most soulless, vapid excuse for a tentpole movie in a year that, truth be told, was full of them. The only bright side is that were this not such a disaster in the making, it was delayed a long time after all, the Russo brothers would have likely never returned to the Marvel fold. Number 3 is Hurry Up Tomorrow. This will no doubt go down as one of the most misguided vanity projects of all time, with The Weeknd starring as himself in a psychological thriller in which he's taken captive by a crazed man played by Jenna Ortega. How bad is this movie? Take a shot every time The Weeknd soulfully gazes into the camera and cries. You won't make it through 45 minutes, in which case you'll miss the ending, where Ortega seemingly is cured of her homicidal impulses by the beauty of The Weeknd's singing. Yes, this actually happens in this movie. Number 2 is War of the Worlds. Now, whose idea was this? Hey, let's do a new version of War of the Worlds set entirely online with Ice Cube as the star. Yeah, Ice Cube. It was very quietly dumped onto streaming after having been shot a whole 5 years ago at the height of the pandemic. Yet the fact that it's a pandemic movie shot during lockdown partially explains why it feels like such a relic and amateur hour, complete with hilarious product placement. It really should have stayed on the shelf, as this thing is basically an antique at this point. As much as Amazon tried to bury it, the internet found it, with it quickly becoming one of the most infamously bad films of all time. But for me, the worst movie of the year is I Know What You Did Last Summer. War of the Worlds is definitely a worse movie than the requel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, but that had nothing, like no appeal to it whatsoever. Whereas I Know What You Did Last Summer has a great cast and should have been a good, fun requel. The thing is, unlike War of the Worlds, I Know What You Did Last Summer is a real movie, but it's also a movie that feels like it was written and directed by a committee of people with no appreciation whatsoever for the franchise that it's trying to reignite. The idea to take one of the franchise's heroes and turn him into the killer was absolutely insane, and horror fans rejected the film so strongly that it's unlikely any other slasher franchise will ever dare to repeat its mistakes, which is good, as there were some pretty bad rumors about the upcoming Scream movie that hopefully aren't going to happen now. This one utterly spat in the faces of all the horror fans who loved the first movie, and I have to say, it is the year's biggest disaster. So there you have it. That's my list. What were the worst movies of the year for you? Let us know in the comments.